I hope that maybe I'll be some kind of math teacher and reach kids when they were Chris's age and re-enchant them by introducing order and meaning into the whole mathematical scripture instead of randomness and chaos. And it's really cool. I was just thinking about what Chris is saying here is that if you do what he was doing here with Lucifer on this axis, which would be space, and Ahriman over here, and Lucifer's complexity, and Ahriman is entropy, and he said Ahriman is the karma of Lucifer, and literally entropy is the karmic result of complexity, which is really cool. And then Christ and Sophia would be on the time, with Christ being a dimensional limitation and Sophia being freedom, and then this circle, which is constant, would be energy. So that just kind of relates that. And there's a lot of information on the other side of the board. There's a Hegelian dialectic of history, which Chris kind of covered. And I can extend that over into the whole cosmos in three phases with Teilhard. And there's differentiation, aggregation, and synthesis. And this is like thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And on the other side of the board, there's going to be a thing with states. And I'm going to talk about the interesting part that happens in between the states, which are the phase changes. And the states are like Teilhard's tangential energies. There's a lot of quantitative changes happening during the Genesis stages. And in between is the interesting part. That's the qualitative radial emergences of new types of stuff. So don't get too blown away. What's happening?
Where's the handout?
I have a handout that sums this up, but I'm going to hand it out afterwards, because I don't want you staring at it while I'm talking. Okay. When I was 14, I went to a zoo, and I got really close to a monkey, a chimp, and I was staring at this chimp's feet, the bottom of his feet, the bottom of his hands, and they looked just like mine. And my dad saddled up beside me and kind of whispered ominously into my ear. He was like, how could anyone ever doubt that that's your great grandpa, something like that. So I'm embedded in this evolutionary paradigm, and then I studied astronomy as an undergraduate, and so I'm taking Teilhard's Genesis stages and extending them and connecting them using the fractal or the golden ratio. So this first part is this unspeakable nothing. So like in Taoism, the first stage of the 5 stages in the history of the universe is this unspeakable, the Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. So we can't talk about that. But we can reference and call it 0, which is kind of cool. And then there's this phase change from 0 to 1. And it requires an infinite leap because 0 is nothing. So to get from 0 to 1, you need some kind of infinite chutzpah. Okay, and then going from 1 to 0, 1 is the infinite density, infinitesimal volume, singularity. It's got infinite energy. There's no space-time. There's no temporality. It's eternal. It's timeless. And these represent aggregates. And they're going, so nothing makes being, and being makes energy, and energy makes matter and antimatter, and it goes back and forth like that. So there's a quote from John Grimm and Mary Tucker that says, Teilhard calls this the metaphysics of union, for he claims that the most primordial notion of being suggests a union. He then describes the successive phases of union. The first is that God, in his triune nature, contains his own self-oppositions. Second, at the opposite pole of the self-sufficient first cause, there exists the multiple of matter. Finally, the creative act of God takes on a significant meaning. Creation reflects the reflector. So we go from 1 to 1. And the second one is this ontogenesis. So Teilhard starts with cosmogenesis. I'm taking it back. I'm saying before you have the cosmos, you need energy and being. You need a ground for being. It's an opposite of 1. It's a reflective mirror image of God. It's a reflection of the causa sui. God takes himself and makes of himself an object. It's the self-reflectivity of God in energy. Later in anthropogenesis, Teilhard would call that matter thinking itself. This would be energy becoming itself. Okay, going from the 1 to the 2, so this was a fundamental split from the 1 to the 1. From the 1 to the 2 is a secondary split. You get the yin and the yang, you get energy and time, you get the introduction of time and temporality and duration, finitude. That's this 1 is the Big Bang. And you go into 2 and you've got temporality. You've got the creation of volume and space-time and more ground for being. During the genesis at 2, you've got matter and antimatter. And then in the phase change between 2 and 3 is a third split. Matter dominates over antimatter. Wikipedia has a good explanation for this. It says, symmetry breaking phase transitions put the fundamental forces of physics and the parameters of elementary particles into their present form. So while 2 is still a symmetrical state, breaking that symmetry and goes into 3. At 3, a lot happens. Cosmogenesis, you've got nucleosynthesis, you've got quarks making nuclei, you've got nuclei and electrons making atoms, you've got atoms making stars, you've got stars making galaxies. You've got all sorts of differentiation from this unity that was 1 into this maximally differentiated quark, gluon, plasma. It's just totally differentiated. And then from that maximum differentiation point, you start getting these processes of aggregation and synthesis that start reunifying all the elements back together. So then from 3 to 5, there's a phase change where planets come to be. This is a new quality in the universe that didn't exist before. Now you have planets. And at 5, at geogenesis, you've got higher order synthesis resuming again. Instead of before, there was just like stars coming together atoms coming together and making stars coming together and making galaxies. There's no new quality being introduced. But at geogenesis, atoms becoming molecules, there's new qualities arising.
Daniel,
yeah.
Did you say what the numbers were?
This is the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay, you didn't say that yet.
I did not say that.
Okay, good.
This is the Fibonacci sequence. It starts with 0, and the pattern is that you just add the previous number to them, and you get the next number. So it's a self-symmetrical pattern. The principle is contained within itself. This kind of describes that. This